So thank you for attending this training session for Quality Automotive Services. My name is Justina and I'll be your instructor for this brief 30-minute exercise, this activity period. And so this session will focus on motivation. And so what leads to motivation and how you as supervisors can appropriately motivate, inspire and encourage your staff by understanding the basics of motivation, right? And so we're going to do a brief activity to begin, and then we're going to watch a short video here titled The Truth Behind Motivation. We're going to be pausing here and there to discuss what's being said so that we can make sure we're on the same page and truly be able to follow along. In front of you, you will find your trainee handbook with a pencil. There's going to be a before activity and there's going to be an after activity, so a pre and a post, so to speak. And so the first thing we're going to do is turn to page 5. We're going to get to the pre-activity. Awesome, thank you. And so as you can see, the purpose of this activity is reflection. So this is to get you thinking of like some of the motivational strategies that you currently use and maybe where you feel like you might need to improve in terms of motivating your staff. So I'd like to begin by just offering a few minutes here for you to fill out your motivational strategy sheet, and then we're going to discuss a tiny bit about some of the responses if we feel comfortable, and then we're going to go ahead with the video. So if we don't have any questions, we can go ahead and fill these out.
Okay.
And I'm here if you do have any questions along the way. We'll take a couple minutes to do this. Perfect. Again, no right or wrong answer, just a nice reflection. How are we doing? All good? Okay, perfect. So, if it's okay with us, everyone, let's discuss a little bit, just to open up the conversation, to kind of just get our minds in a motivational frame. So what are some of the struggles when we motivate others, along with when we motivate ourselves? What are some of the struggles?
Well, myself, I always have self-doubt, and I need some reassurance along the way.
Right. Okay. So there might be, so maybe a lack of confidence somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Maybe even a lack of purpose or knowing what your purpose is in your work, or the employee's work, right? Yeah. Yourself.
Not meaningful work and you can't reach bonuses.
Yeah. Okay, so again, maybe the lack of purpose and incorrect motivators, perhaps, like maybe motivating, using the wrong motivators. Yeah, so there's intrinsic and extrinsic, which we'll get into a little bit as we continue, but yeah, okay. So those are good responses. So what are we currently doing, switch it up a little bit, what are we currently doing to ensure quality customer service in our staff right now?
Well, right now we're offering bonuses when they reach certain criteria or quotas.
Yep. Bonuses are great.
Yeah, bonuses are great.
They say that everybody likes money, right?
To a point.
That's right, yeah. This is why we're here. That's awesome. And what about yourself?
Appraisals, overlooking services, and customer surveys.
Right, yeah. No, those are all really good. So appraisal, so perfect. Like quality service is key, right? Because if you don't satisfy your customer or show your legit concern or care towards your customers, they won't come back. Right? And you as supervisors have this potential, this significant amount of potential to assist with this and help motivating your staff to provide excellent quality customer service, which is what quality automotive services is all about. So the feedback is awesome. It comes directly from your customers, so that is something great that you guys are doing. The employee appraisals, again, those are critical. And taking those appraisals a few steps further in terms of what we do with that information, like continuing to train and further develop the employee skills, right? And of course, the skills needed to do their job with meaning and purpose. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
So this brings us to our next two questions there. Why, like, what do we feel like we could do better, maybe, and what do we want to get out of this workshop? You know?
Well, I would like to better understand how I can motivate my staff.
Okay, yeah, agreed. And what, yeah, same
Yeah.
thing, hey? Yeah, simply put, just how to understand more motivational strategies and techniques to motivate your staff, inspire your staff. Yeah, okay. So awesome conversation, thank you. And so I have a feeling that this video that we're gonna watch here, and some of the engagement and conversations throughout that we're gonna have, because I will be pausing here and there, that it's gonna help shine light on some of the skills and concerns, the skills that you guys are looking to improve on, and the concerns that you're sharing like right now, or at least provide a place to begin, some guidance on where to start. So does this make sense? Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's move on to the short video here. And again, I'm gonna try not to be pausing that much, but I will pause where we want clarification just to make sure everybody's on the same page. So let us begin.
Our motivations are unbelievably interesting. I mean, I find I've been working on this for a few years, and I just find the topic still so amazingly engaging and interesting. So I want to tell you about that. The science is really surprising. The science is a little bit freaky. Okay, we are not as endlessly manipulable and as predictable as you would think. There's a whole set of unbelievably interesting studies. I want to give you two that call into question this idea that if you reward something, you get more of the behavior you want. If you punish something, you get less of it. So let's.
Okay, so I know this is pretty early into the video, but does that make sense? If we reward someone with something, do we get more of the behavior that we want? And again, if we punish something, do we get less of that type of behavior? Does that concept make sense?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So working off of that, we'll continue. That makes sense?
Let's go from London to the mean streets of Cambridge, Massachusetts, in the northeastern part of the United States. Let's talk about a study done at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Here's what they did. They took a whole group of students and they gave them a set of challenges. Things like memorizing strings of digits, solving word puzzles, other kinds of spatial puzzles, even physical tasks like throwing a ball through a hoop. Okay, they gave them these challenges and they said to incentivize their performance, they gave them 3 levels of rewards. Okay? So if you did pretty well, you got a small monetary reward. If you did medium well, you got a medium monetary reward. And if you did really well, if you were one of the top performers, you got a large cash prize. Okay? We've seen this movie before. This is essentially a typical motivation scheme within organizations, right? We reward the very top performers, we ignore the low performers, and the other folks kind of in the middle. Okay, you get a little bit. So what happens? They do the test, they have these incentives, here's what they found out. 1, as long as the task involved only mechanical skill, bonuses worked as they would be expected. The higher the pay, the better the performance. Okay, that makes sense. But here's what happens. But once the task called for even rudimentary cognitive skill, a larger reward led to poorer performance. Now this is strange, right? A larger reward led to poorer performance? How can that possibly be? Now what's interesting about this is that these folks here who did this are all economists, 2 at MIT, 1 at the University of Chicago, 1 at Carnegie Mellon, okay? Top tier of the economics profession. And they're reaching this conclusion that seems contrary to what a lot of us learned in economics, which is that the higher the reward, the better the performance. And they're saying that once you get above rudimentary cognitive skill, it's the other way around.
Okay. So are we following this? Like what is rudimentary skill? Do we understand the basics of that?
Yeah, just basic skills.
Basically, yeah, perfect.
Fundamental skills.
Fundamental skills, okay. So exactly, exactly what you just said. Rudimentary skills are exactly that, essentially basic skills. So low-level skills. They help us to think, they help us to recall, they help us to learn, and be able to retain those higher levels of knowledge, right? So it's our retention, our processing, it's our memory. So what this is suggesting is that when you get above these skills, when you get above the rudimentary cognitive skills, this type of reward system, motivational system, doesn't work very well, if at all, right? And so when you're working with people, as you are, your staff, would it be safe to say that they are above rudimentary skills?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
100%, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so because they're in customer service, right? So it makes sense. Okay, perfect. So we've got that out of the way. We're all on the same page there. We're going to continue with the video.
Which seems like this kind of, the idea that these rewards don't work that way, seems vaguely left-wing and socialist, doesn't it? It's kind of this kind of weird socialist conspiracy. For those of you who have those conspiracy theories, I want to point out the notoriously left-wing socialist group that financed the research, the Federal Reserve Bank. So this is the mainstream of the mainstream coming to a conclusion that's quite surprising. It seems to defy the laws of behavioral physics. So this is strange, a strange finding. So what do? They say, this is freaky. Let's go test it somewhere else. Maybe that $50 or $60 prize isn't sufficiently motivating for an MIT student, right? So let's go to a place where $50 is actually more significant relatively, right? So let's take the experiment. We're going to go to Madurai, India, rural India, where $50, $60, whatever the number was, is actually a significant sum of money. So they replicated the experiment in India roughly as follows. Small rewards, the equivalent of 2 weeks' salary. Small performance, low performance, 2 weeks' salary. Medium performance, about a month's salary. High performance, about 2 months' salary. Okay, so those are real good incentives. Okay, so you're going to get a different result here. Well, what happened though was that the people offered the medium reward did no better than the people offered the small reward. But this time around, the people offered the top reward. They did worst of all. Higher incentives led to worse performance. What's interesting about this is that it actually isn't all that anomalous. This has been replicated over and over and over again by psychologists, by some extent by sociologists, and by economists, over and over and over again. For simple, straightforward tasks, those kinds of incentives, if you do this, then you get that, they're great. For tasks that are algorithmic, set of rules where you have to just follow along and get a right answer, if then and rewards, carrots and sticks, outstanding. But when the task gets more complicated, when it requires some conceptual, creative thinking, those kinds of motivators demonstrably don't work.
Right? Does that make sense?
It's interesting.
Yeah. So again, it's kind of suggesting that once you get above those skills, those rudimentary cognitive skills, that these types of rewards don't work. So the incentives don't have as much pull or motivation as they did prior, right? So as soon as you bring in, which we are in your staff, they're dealing with complexity situations that require more thinking, more comprehension, more contemplation, more analysis, right, in dealing with these customers. So these types of motivations don't necessarily work then. The money, the more reward for more of the same behavior. And so maybe this is something that we can consider when trying to motivate our staff going forward, right? Since maybe the focus doesn't need to be on monetary motivators. Maybe it could be intrinsic motivators, not so much extrinsic motivators, if that makes sense, yeah? Mm-hmm. So intrinsic would be like finding satisfaction in one's job, getting pleasure from the work that they do, right? And noticing and seeing the differences that they make, whereas extrinsic would be those bonuses, the days off, the free lunches and stuff like that. So those are the differences. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So let us continue then.
Fact, money is a motivator at work, but in a slightly strange way. If you don't pay people enough, they won't be motivated. What's curious about, there's another paradox here, which is that the best use of money as a motivator is to pay people enough to take the issue of money off the table. Pay people enough so that they're not thinking about money, they're thinking about the work. Now, once you do that, it turns out there are 3 factors that the science shows lead to better performance. Not to mention personal satisfaction. Autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Autonomy is our desire to be self-directed, to direct our own lives. Now, in many ways, traditional notions of management run afoul of that. Management is great if you want compliance, but if you want engagement, which is what we want in the workforce today as people are doing more complicated, sophisticated things, self-direction is better. Let me give you some examples of this. Almost radical forms of self-direction in the workplace that lead to good results. Let's start with this company right here, Atlassian, an Australian company. It's a software company, and they do something really cool. Once a quarter, on a Thursday afternoon, they say to their developers, for the next 24 hours, you can work on anything you want. You can work on it the way you want. You can work on it with whomever you want. All we ask is that you show the results to the company at the end of those 24 hours in this fun kind of meeting, not a star chamber session, but this fun meeting with beer and cake and fun and other things like that. It turns out that that one day of pure, undiluted autonomy has led to a whole array of fixes for existing software, a whole array of ideas for new products that otherwise had never emerged. One day. Now, this is not an if-then incentive. This is not the sort of thing that I would have done 3 years ago before I knew this research. I would have said, you want people to be creative and innovative? Give them a freaking innovation bonus. If you do something cool, I'll give you $2,500. They're not doing this at all. They're essentially saying, you probably want to do something interesting. Let me just get out of your way. One day of autonomy produces things that never emerged.
Okay, so that's autonomy. So briefly, now that we understand the complexity of motivation and the different ways that we can motivate and impact people, we're now talking about autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And so looking at autonomy, how could you see this be beneficial in your workplace? Like how could you see this working for you as a supervisor? You know, having like a free day of work or having a free day to work as you please. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, it definitely would take the pressure off the people, you know, so that they can creatively express themselves.
Yep, big time.
You know, and we're not under, you know, we don't have them under our thumb all the time.
Yeah, we're not exactly hovering over them. Yeah. So there's less control for us, kind of more, it's more in their hands. Right, for them to be more flexible type of thing. Yeah, that's perfect. True, yeah. And what about yourself?
Being more comfortable.
Yeah.
Comfy clothes.
Yeah.
You know, having breaks whenever.
Yeah, that's perfect because it helps get them in the right state of mind, right? Like they don't feel pressured, you know, and it gets them to be open and have those open conversations where they can kind of just talk freely about this type of stuff. Yeah, good points. So I feel like we're getting it and we're understanding. Okay, so you know, understanding the different motivators. Okay, perfect. So let's continue. We're going to go on to mastery then.
Now let's talk about mastery. Mastery is our urge to get better at stuff. We like to get better at stuff. This is why people play musical instruments on the weekend. You have all these people who are acting in ways that seem irrational economically. They play musical instruments on weekends. Why? It's not going to get them a mate. It's not going to make them any money. Why are they doing it? Because it's fun. Because you get better at it, and that's satisfying. Go back in time a little bit. I imagine this if I went to my first economics professor, a woman named Mary Alice Schulman. And I went to her in 1983 and said, Professor Schulman, can I talk to you after class for a moment? Yeah. I got this inkling. I got this idea for a business model. I just want to run it past you. Here's how it would work. You get a bunch of people around the world who are doing highly skilled work, but they're willing to do it for free and volunteer their time, 20, sometimes 30 hours a week. Okay, she's looking at someone skeptically there. Oh, but I'm not done. And then what they create, they give it away rather than sell it. It's going to be huge. And she truly would have thought I was insane. Okay? It seemed to fly in the face of so many things. But what do you have? You have Linux powering 1 out of 4 corporate servers in Fortune 500 companies, Apache powering more than the majority of web servers, Wikipedia. What's going on? Why are people doing this? Why are these people, many of whom are technically sophisticated, highly skilled people who have jobs, okay? They have jobs. They're working at jobs for pay, doing sophisticated technological work, and yet during their limited discretionary time, they do equally, if not more, technically sophisticated work, not for their employer, but for someone else for free. That's a strange economic behavior. Economists who looked into it, why are they doing this? It's overwhelmingly clear. Challenge and mastery, along with making a contribution. That's it.
Challenge and mastery, along with making a contribution. Okay, so that's mastery. So what do we understand about mastery? What did you get from that?
Well, I can see that, you know, with my employees,
Yes.
I've got to give them better challenges. Without that, they're
Right.
just being bored,
Yeah.
you know, so, and being able to be creative and master their craft.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, sometimes people like a challenge, right? No, that's very true. Good points.
And I know that people like to naturally master stuff, especially when it's a contribution to the community.
Yeah. Yep. Perfect. No, so people like a challenge at times, like we were just saying.
Sorry, I feel like I have a little bit of a cough too.
That's okay. Drink your water if you need to. So especially when it's something they resonate with, right? So or it's something they want to get better at, right? And if they see it makes a difference, like you mentioned, that's a huge one. So people they work
Excuse me.
towards mastery, pretty much, in whatever it is that they want to enjoy, right? So people they want to make a contribution, as you were saying, and your staff have a huge role in being able to contribute to society. Right, and especially in terms of being able to provide that quality customer service that you guys strive so much for, and you know that you guys could be the voice, so giving your customers the voice, and so you as those supervisors can motivate and assist, right? You can assist your staff in various ways, and so far. We have reviewed motivation and the concept that sometimes incentivizing larger rewards doesn't always lead necessarily to a better performance. We've already reviewed the autonomy, so the freedom of an employee in the workplace and how that can be beneficial in terms of motivating them. And then of course, like the innovation, right, and being explorative in that sense and being able to bounce ideas around. And then of course now mastery. So it's basically the drive within people, like you were saying, the natural drive within people to perfect their skills, basically in something that truly provides them with happiness, right? And so that was autonomy, mastery, and now we're going to look at purpose. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, let's
Good.
do it.
What you see more and more is a rise of what you might call purpose motive. Is that more and more organizations want to have some kind of transcendent purpose. Partly because it makes coming to work better, partly because that's the way to get better talent. And what we're seeing now is, in some ways, when the profit motive becomes unmoored from the purpose motive, bad things happen. Bad things ethically sometimes, but also bad things just like not good stuff, like crappy products, like lame services, like uninspiring places to work. That when the profit motive is paramount, or when it becomes completely unhitched from the purpose motive, just people don't do great things. More and more organizations are realizing this and sort of disturbing the categories between what's profit and what's purpose. And I think that actually heralds something interesting. I think that the organizations that are flourishing, whether they're profit, for profit, or somewhere in between, are animated by this purpose motive. Let me give you a couple of examples. Here's the founder of Skype. He says, our goal is to be disruptive, but in the cause of making the world a better place. Pretty good purpose. Here's Steve Jobs. I want to put a ding in the universe. All right? That's the kind of thing that might get you up in the morning racing to go to work. So I think that we are purpose maximizers, not only profit maximizers. I think the science shows that we care about mastery very, very deeply. And the science shows that we want to be self-directed. And I think that the big takeaway here is that if we start treating people like people and not assuming that they're simply horses, slower, smaller, better smelling horses, if we get past this kind of ideology of carrots and sticks and look at the science, I think we can actually build organizations and work lives that make us better off. But I also think they have the promise to make our world just a little bit better.
Well, there we go. Make the world a little bit better. Okay, so there we have it, folks. Do we understand purpose? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Because that's a Nice, okay, so that's a pretty deep one as well. So let's move on to the post-activity, shall we? So let's kind of test your memory a little bit in terms of the video we just watched and also debrief at the same time. And so if you now don't mind, if you would flip your page there, turn it to page 6. And this is our post-activity. So just a few questions that we're going to go through. So let us discuss this together, and then you can fill it out if you'd like as we go. But what are the top 3 factors, according to the video, that lead to better performance and deeper job satisfaction in terms of motivation?
I think autonomy and
Yeah.
mastery.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, those were the top 2 for sure. First,
Yeah, okay.
first and second. Do you recall?
Purpose?
Purpose, yes, and purpose was the 3rd. That's right. So we dug deep into autonomy, mastery, and purpose, and we're all on the same page there. So those are 3 huge factors that assist with motivation, that can allow more motivation to your employees. So one more question: what can we take away from this video and session to help ensure quality customer service in your staff, to motivate your staff to provide this quality customer service?
Well, I think, money isn't the end all. We've got to give them some purpose, more autonomy. Don't
That's right.
micromanage.
Yeah.
Let them
Yeah,
blossom.
back to that autonomy again, right?
Yeah.
Exactly, okay. Well summed up. And yourself?
I'm going to take away a lot, but one thing in particular is the impact I have to my staff in the various ways.
Yeah.
I want to be able to motivate them and challenge them.
Yeah, it's huge, because again, as supervisors, you guys are leaders, right? So like when I say jump, you say how high. That type of stuff doesn't work, right? In today's workforce. Okay, so in order to motivate and understand, we need to understand ourselves, right? We need to see each other as humans and not just numbers, okay? And money is not the answer to everything, as we were called in the video. And so this is crucial for you guys as supervisors to know, since you lead and you guide. You are role models, and that's huge. You have a huge opportunity to inspire and motivate and improve job satisfaction, which ultimately leads to what? To a better, higher quality service, right? As a direct result of these happy employees. And so nearing the end here, I'm just going to ask you, if you don't mind, to go ahead and flip to page 15 there. And we'll finish off by just allowing you to complete that feedback form, if you don't mind, for me. And while you're filling that out, I would just note that if you have any further questions, my contact information is in the trainee handbook there for you. And I would be happy to connect further if you would like. But we'll give you some time to fill that out, and we'll conclude.